What are some very creepy facts? The Colombian serial killer Pedro Alonso Lopez, who is known as the Monster of the Andes, raped and murdered over 300 girls from Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia. However, after he was caught and imprisoned for 18 years, he was put in a psychiatric hospital. There he was reviewed, declared to be sane and was set free, in spite of his blatant avowal that he fully intends to kill again. Since he was released in 1998, nobody knows where he is or what he's doing. He is supposed to be 71 years old at present. He is known for being the most prolific killer ever. He preyed on native children, so the authorities didn't really do much. Eventually locals caught him and were going to kill him, but an American missionary intervened and insisted they hand him over to the police, who promptly drove him to the border and told him to get out and cross over the border. He went on to murder 90 more little girls. There is a genetic disease called fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva. When tissue is damaged, it is replaced with bone. Growths form underneath their skin and their joints lock solid, so over time those affected slowly become encased in a prison of bone just beneath their own skin. They usually have to choose between sitting or standing up for the rest of their life. By the end of their life they have to drink every meal through a straw and can barely move. There is a genetic disease called fibrodysplasia ossificans progressiva. When tissue is damaged, it is replaced with bone. Growths form underneath their skin and their joints lock solid, so over time those affected slowly become encased in a prison of bone just beneath their own skin. They usually have to choose between sitting or standing up for the rest of their life. By the end of their life they have to drink every meal through a straw and can barely move. Slightly related maybe, but I have a tarsal coalition in my right ankle. I've had to have excess bone removed from my ankle in surgery and it keeps growing back. It's been a while since I had the consultations with the specialist doctor, so I can't remember specifics, but I know that I've always had this genetic mutation. It started being painful and especially stiff when I was 17 plus, as this is when bones start to harden after being fairly soft when growing. Had to stop doing most sports and playing football, soccer, with friends left me in agony. It got me depressed, and I remember telling my mother that I didn't want to live if I had to go through life with this pain in my foot and its restrictive qualities. Needless to say, and also a really stupid thing to say to my mom, I eventually got over it. I now don't tend to even think about it. My gait had to change due to my foot being stiff as to stop the pains. Oh, now I just walk slightly funny. Working on my feet all day can cause it to ache and stop me from sleeping. Very uncomfortable. I went through a ton of shit with tarsal coalition, but I was just relieved I didn't have to play soccer anymore and could game my balls off. Needless to say, I became quite large after and started running on an elliptical cause the pavement treadmill would just make my foot feel like absolute shit. If you get a blood transfusion and get the wrong type of blood, A, B, O, AB, one of the symptoms is a sense of impending doom. Keep in mind you aren't really thinking the words of the latter, you feel them in your bones, heart and fingertips. You will claw your way through any nearby humans to escape something you can't see. You can feel that way all of the time. You wouldn't be able to type. Maybe the worst of the worst panic attack. Humans' eyes don't reflect light at night like animals do. I like to say this fact to my wife at a campfire. However, it is possible to observe red eye in person without a camera flash, if you're at just the right angle. This happens to me frequently, because I have a condition wherein my pupils are overly dilated most of the time. Freaks the hell out of my family. I meant observing red eye with the naked eye, not caused by a camera flash. Most people's eyes are able to constrict enough in varied lighting conditions to where red eye doesn't become a problem just in everyday life. The sudden burst of bright light from the camera flash causes red eye normally, because even a regular eye can't react fast enough to the sudden light. Red eye prevention on cameras is a smaller blink of light before the main flash to counteract this, by giving the eye an extra split second to adjust before the big flash and photo. In my particular case, Adie's syndrome, a neurological condition, causes my pupils to be slow to respond to light. So while an average human can react fairly quickly to changing light conditions to not have red eye in a regular room, my eyes take a lot longer. There are other issues besides red eye, but that was the only one relevant to the humans don't have reflective eyes discussion. An old colleague used to tell a story of how she was once driving at night and accidentally hit something, saw the eyes flash, and she was convinced was a human but couldn't find the person when she got out of her car to check. She called the police in a panic and they told her that human eyes don't reflect the light. Can't imagine her relief. Your eyes have a separate immune system from the rest of your body. If they get damaged in such a way that it affects anything other than your eyes, your regular immune system can attack the damage and will not recognize them, meaning your own body can permanently blind you. What's worse, your body cannot tell the difference between either eye. If one of them gets infected or damaged, your immune system can attack your healthy eye and take away your sight entirely. This happened to my spermatozoa. I fractured a testicle in college, and leaked sperms into my bloodstream. When the white blood cells encountered the sperms, they formed antibodies to them because sperms shouldn't be in blood. Oddly, white blood cells can go anywhere they want, but because they recognized sperms as bad guys in one location, they have determined sperms to be bad guys in any location. So now they seek out and kill all my little guys as soon as my nuts hatch them. Interesting, I never knew that, but it makes anecdotal sense. My granddad was blinded in one eye in the 40s in a hunting accident, and had to have the eye removed a few years back because it got infected. I never knew that the risk was going to be total blindness. I've never heard this before. This might be one reason why conditions like myasthenia gravis affect eyesight much more stubbornly than the rest of the body. I believe that affects the nerves around the eye and face more so than the eye itself. Rosemary Kennedy was JFK's sister. She suffered from oxygen deprivation at birth and that unfortunately stunted her mental growth. She had a pretty decent childhood, but as she grew older she began to act out. Afraid that her behavior would risk his political career, her father, Joseph, agreed to have her lobotomized. Her mother, Rose, was against it and forbade him from doing it. So he did it behind her back when she went on a trip. After the operation, Rosemary's already low IQ was lowered even further, to the point she could no longer walk or communicate. Her family had her locked up in an institution and basically disowned her. They never visited and never publicly acknowledged her anymore. Rosemary died at the age of 86. Her mother never forgave her husband for what he had done. It's unknown if she had that low of an IQ, though she did have some brain damage at birth. She was functional enough to read and write, and part of the reason she was lobotomized may have involved sleeping around and being defiant. She had an active social life. Imagine being lobotomized because the general standard of the family was people like JFK and RFK and you weren't living up to it. The procedure itself was an absolute travesty to medicine. The instrument Dr. Watts used looked like a butter knife. He swung it up and down to cut brain tissue. "We put an instrument inside," he said. As Dr. Watts cut, Dr. Freeman asked Rosemary some questions. For example, he asked her to recite the Lord's Prayer or sing God Bless America or count backward. We made an estimate on how far to cut based on how she responded. When Rosemary began to become incoherent, they stopped. The lobotomy itself was essentially just guesswork. They haphazardly performed surgery that they would have known beforehand would fail and render her mentally incapacitated, which makes the situation even more sad. They knew it would be unsuccessful and they knew what it would mean for her future. A couple more creepy facts: the reason she was oxygen deprived at birth is because the delivery nurse shut her mother's legs as she was in labor, forcing the baby back in until the doctor got there. JFK did visit her, and that was how he found out about her condition. He later passed laws to protect the developmentally disabled before he was assassinated. Additionally, Kennedy changed the law regarding involuntary commitment to mental hospitals across the country in order to get another family member out. There was one in my town, and after the law changed, the homeless population substantially increased.